Do I have to say it's Jake from Call Out? No, because I have Call Out written on my head, right? Hey Internet, welcome back. It's Jake, and we're gonna talk about streamlining your set and trying to create like an energized set on stage, really engaging your audience and being entertaining on stage. First, we're gonna talk about constructing a set and really trying to figure out how to stand apart from other bands when you're playing out at shows. A lot of times, something that we've seen in our personal experience is that there are a lot of very, very talented musicians out there in the world, and we've played shows with many talented musicians that we're honored to play with. But all too often we find bands falling into the trap of sounding flat or not having a lot of dynamic in their set. Not that they aren't extremely talented, but just for someone in the audience who has never seen you before, how do you captivate them and really pull them in? How do you do something that to really draw them in and make them want to look you up after the show or come say hi? How do you really engage with them aside from just playing your songs at them? And something we try to do is we really want to try to connect with our audience. We really try to make it an engaging experience with them where it's not so much about us, but it's more about them and us entertaining them. When you're on stage and you're playing a set to someone, it's your job to entertain them. You might be presenting the music that you've written, but as a musician playing out live, you are the entertainment for the night. You need to make sure that they feel engaged, that your audience feels engaged, and that they are having a good time. So when writing a set, you want to really think about what's going to be the most streamlined, how you can really connect all of your songs to sound good together, and also how to create a dynamic in your set. For example, when you're playing a set to a crowd that you've never played to before, you need to consider what they think of you as a band or as artists that they've never seen. Go into it knowing that maybe a few of them looked up your music ahead of time, but there's a good chance that the majority of them don't know you. So you shouldn't go into the show expecting them to get all hyped up on your songs and really trying to like get into it, because the chances are they have no idea what's happening. This is where stuff like throwing in a cover or two might kind of really catch their attention. Usually we try to put our cover third or fourth in the set, but there's a lot of different ways of doing it. I mean, if you're playing to someone you've never played before, you might want to make the cover the first thing that everyone hears. That way you really grab their attention and suck them in and they pay attention to whatever comes next. Or maybe you're the first band of the whole night, maybe make the cover the last song. That way, as people are still coming in through the door because not everyone's arrived yet, the last thing they hear from you is something that they know, but they hear you doing it in your own style, and that really draws them in and is like, wow, I want to know more about those people. Something else you want to consider about creating dynamics in your set is what types of songs you're playing. You might be a hard rock band that has a lot of hard rock music, and that's fantastic. But if your entire set is only hard rock music and nobody in the crowd knows what you're playing, chances are that people are going to kind of tune out and get a little bored with it halfway in. That might not be the case for everybody, but maybe throwing in a slow song here or there, or throwing in just something out of the ordinary. You doing something that just makes you stand out. Taking a hard rock song and making it into a funk song or a ska song or a jazz reenactment of one of your songs. Just something that really stands out there to grab the crowd's attention, regardless of whether or not they really dig into the style you're playing in. You've now done something that turns them away from whatever they're doing or not paying attention to and puts the focus back on you. Also, another important thing about creating dynamics in your set is finding ways to engage the audience that's more than just talking to them. A lot of times we'll try to do stuff where it's like getting the crowd to sing along to certain parts, or we'll write different parts in our songs, or change our recorded music in a way that people can sing along with it, or Becky will kind of go on stage and she'll kind of have people do call and responses to things that she makes up on the spot with. And it really kind of just tries to draw the crowd back in. Getting the crowd to go, hey, 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 is just like a very common way that people usually get to, can relate. Giving people a single line to sing back to is always engaging. If you have merch, throw out some free t-shirts or some free stickers on stage. Find a way to like engage with people by giving them free stuff, because I mean, who doesn't like free stuff? We try to plan our covers. Okay. Another thing to do is try to plan your covers for the show you're playing. If you're playing a basement somewhere, think about what kind of people are going to be at that show and write or pick songs accordingly. If you're playing like a rave to some like a college, or you're playing a rave at like a big venue but it's like very pop oriented, pick a pop cover and try to do your own style with it. Really try to adapt what you know and make it fit for the audience so they feel like they're connecting with you. Another trick for when you're on stage, to keep the audience engaged, talk about what your songs are about, rather than just introducing your songs as, okay, so this is the next single on our album. You know, we re-released this song 5 years ago, and this is the single from that album. Tell them what that song's about. What inspired the song? What happened to really get people engaged, like that made you want to write that song? Did it come from heartbreak? Did it come from happiness? Did it come from a life experience? Tell them that story. Chances are someone else in the crowd would feel something similar to it and is now going to want to listen to the song. Even if they don't enjoy the style, they'll at least give you their first 30 seconds of attention rather than just turning away instantly because they've heard the same thing a million times of, here's our new single. It's like, people have heard that before. And also, people who don't know you don't care that it's your new single, usually. I mean, people who don't know you, they want to know about you. They don't just want to be there to watch you play. They want to engage with you. Something else about being engaging on stage, when you're on stage, you're performing, you're entertaining. Don't limit yourself to just a single spot on the stage. You want to move around. You want to engage with each other as much as you want to engage with the audience. If your vocalist is not bound by a guitar, have them move around, move across the stage, get down into the audience or get as close to the audience as possible, getting down on one knee and making eye contact with everybody. Self-confidence is a hard thing to learn, especially when you're performing in front of strangers, but really connecting with each person and commanding the stage makes you look far more professional than being that band that just stands there and looks bored. Big key is that if the audience looks bored, it's probably because you look bored. You never want to be that band that just looks like they're there to play the show and leave. You want to be there and really trying to connect to everybody who's watching you. Building self-confidence to perform on stage is hard, especially when you're out in front of a bunch of strangers you've never met before. But take some advice from like Lizzie Hale. We've had a conversation where she's told Becky, our vocalist, have a staring contest with each of the members, or pick out a few people in the audience and have a staring contest with them. It's a really good way to force yourself to try to break out of your own shell, and the people you're connecting with the people you're staring at will feel connected to you. You'll build more of a repertoire, like a rapport with them, just because they know that you're performing to them and not just for them. And plus, doing this over and over, eventually it'll become second nature and you won't be afraid of looking at people. It just becomes the natural thing to do. And for anyone who's going out for the first time performing and has never been on stage before, just to get over your stage fright, pick an object in the back of the room like the exit sign or the sound guy and just stare at that until you're comfortable enough to look down. But make sure that do your absolute best to not just stare down at your instrument the whole time. Even if you are too nervous to make eye contact with people, make sure you're at least looking out at the audience. Being professional and engaging on stage, it's very important that you present yourself as professional. So many bands we've seen will do a thing where they go on stage and they make a mistake, and then immediately after the song's done, they'll go, ha ha ha, you see that thing I did? Like, just ignore that I messed up in the chorus, or like, that was terrible, don't worry, we'll get it next time. That was funny for Blink-182 back in like the 90s, maybe, and it worked for them, but nowadays it doesn't look very professional. It didn't even really look that professional for them. You never want to acknowledge your mistakes on stage. There's a really good chance that the audience didn't even catch it, and if they did, you look way more credible and professional by just playing it off rather than acknowledging it. If someone's guitar cuts out, you just keep playing. It sucks. You're probably going to lose an aspect or an element to your song, but for people who have never seen you before, they don't know the difference. So if you just keep killing it on stage, they won't care that something is missing because they won't know. And you just play through it, and then the best part is that if they decide to check your music out later and then they hear the full thing with all of the instruments there, it's going to sound even more mind-blowing to them. Whenever you're on stage, everyone has a different kind of stage presence and everyone has a different kind of show. And that's totally fine, and everyone creates things in their own way. We do find, though, that you never want to be silent on stage, and if you are silent on stage, you want there to be a reason for it. Any silence that is complete silence on stage needs to be planned for. If there's technical difficulties, or you're going between song to song and someone's changing over instruments or tuning, there needs to be something prepared, something to talk about, either thanking the other bands that played the night, announcing your own stuff, announcing your tour, talking about your own experiences, talking about your music, telling a story, even just making jokes. Anything is fine, but you can't just let there be dead silence on stage. It's the most awkward and uncomfortable thing for both you and the audience. And it happens to everybody, and it's one of those things that sometimes it just happens and you have to roll with it. But you need to try to do your best to plan everything ahead of time so that if something terrible happens and you need to take longer between songs, you have something going. Be it maybe some popular cover riffs or melodies that the crowd can kind of start jamming along to, or the ability to just talk to them and connect to them, inviting them to talk to you after the show, trying to sell, maybe talk about your merch briefly, whatever you can think of to really engage them between songs. All right, and by the way, before we go, I just want to let everybody know that we have call-out beanies up for sale on our store online. The link is down here in the description. Go ahead and take a look for that cold winter weather for next year, because we're heading into spring. But you know what? It's never too late to wear a beanie. So anyone wants some call-out beanies? If you want some call-out beanies, we got them on our Big Cartel store, and the link is in the description. All right, so that's how you can make your live performance just a little bit better. If I forgot anything, or you guys have any ways that you make your own live performances better, more engaging, more exciting, how you get people to follow you and watch you, let me know down in the comments. Love to talk about it, and we'll see you next time. Little